This is a discussion about Hisbodidus. Not so much like a regular time of secluded prayer, which is a really good thing, and it's part of Hisbodidus. If you want to read more about it, read Rebbe Nachman's biography called Through Fire and Water. I think it's put out by Breslov Research Institute. But he discusses Hisbodidus in more detail. I'm going to share something that's very personal. It's my own experience with Hisbodidus. About 12 years ago, I had been involved in traditional synagogue as well as Messianic Judaism for many years by that point. I had something happen that pretty much destroyed my life. I won't go into it in great detail, but it really destroyed everything I loved. And it was a very hard time for me. I slept on my couch, crying out to God, literally crying, asking God to help me. The way he helped me was the next day I was on my computer cruising suicide websites, looking for a painless, bloodless way to end my life, not because I wanted to die, but I had to end the pain. A woman from my congregation called me, and she asked me, first she just called about some Bible verse, and then she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Nothing, everything is fine." And she said she didn't believe me. Her son had committed suicide 3 years earlier, and she recognized something in my voice. She said, "I'm coming over." And she came right over, and she spent the afternoon with me, trying to talk me into going to the emergency room. Eventually, she convinced me and took me there. And after I got checked in to the emergency room, psych room, she left, and I lost it completely. I cried out to God, and I asked him to help me. The next day, my doctor, who it takes 3 or 4 weeks to get an appointment with, asked me to come in. Apparently the hospital talked to him. And they sent me to a psychiatrist who took pity on me, and I started going to him 5 days a week at first, and then less. I literally spent 2 months in my basement smoking cigars and staring into space. I prayed to God, but at that point I had stopped putting on tefillin. I had stopped davening in any meaningful way. I just felt they weren't doing anything for me. But I just thought about God and cried out to God. During that time, I had an experience I really can't explain, other than to say I had a very strong experience of God's presence, not just something mental, but God was present with me. I beheld his presence in a way that I can't even put into words. Even to this day, I have no words to describe it. And it was only for him to let me know that he hadn't abandoned me and that he was going with me through this horrible, unbearable time in my life. The result of it was I got better. I got better very quickly, to the point that my psychiatrist said he doesn't believe in God, but if he did believe in God, he would have said this was a miracle, because it takes people years to get over what I got over. And in less than 6 months, I was restored. What came out of this? As a result of that experience, God's presence, not the horrible thing, I have had an ongoing sense of God's presence continually with me, to the point that when I'm praying or when I'm teaching or just when I'm talking to other people, I sense his presence with me. And it's given me a great deal of power when I pray, power when I preach, even when I'm teaching, when I'm making this video, I sense his presence, and I know he's there. In a real way, I sense it. Not to the extent I did in that basement. And to be honest, if I had to go through that again to feel this way, I don't know if I would want to, because the experience was so horrible that led me to it. But that sense of his presence has empowered me, and I believe that came out of my experience with Hisbodidus. So I know that's very subjective. I've tried to analyze it at different times and wondering if I was hallucinating, but that the results of it have stayed with me, so I don't think it's a hallucination. It was over and above, and when I couldn't pray the other ways. It's like Rebbe Nachman said, the evil one comes against us in our prayers. And if he attacks us, if he attacks us in our davening, we will prevail in Hisbodidus. And if he attacks us in the Hisbodidus, we will prevail through the davening. Do I daven again? Yes, I do. Do I practice Hisbodidus? Yes, I do. Do I experience kavanah? Yes, I do. So it all works together. It would be better if I had a daily time of Hisbodidus. My time is usually while I'm driving. While I'm driving, I'm praying about a lot of things because it's a quiet time where no one bothers me unless my phone rings, like it just did. But recognize that this is a valid form of prayer, and as believers, we sometimes just need to cry out to God.